Bitcoin move fast. Here's what's happening today. Let's get you locked in. Right now, Bitcoin is hovering around $84,000, but that's not the real story. While retail debates short-term moves, the biggest players on the planet are making moves that most won't realize until it's too late. BlackRock Bitcoin's ETF is stacking relentlessly. The US government has gone from seizing Bitcoin to stockpiling it as a strategic reserve. And China, despite its so-called ban, seems to be playing a double game. So let's break it down. Who's buying, who's pretending not to care, and who about to get left behind. For years, Bitcoin has been called digital gold, but calling it just an inflation hedge is missing the bigger picture. If you live in Argentina, where inflation has hit a staggering 276%, Bitcoin isn't a hedge, it's survival. The peso is losing its values by the minute, forcing people to flee into assets that governments can't inflate. In Turkey, the lira's collapse triggered a Bitcoin buying frenzy. But in places like in the US and Europe, inflation alone hasn't been the main price driver. Instead, Bitcoin is reacting to something much bigger, a growing distrust in the entire financial system. When banks fail, when government policies wobble, when fiat currencies get weaker, Bitcoin thrives. And that's a pattern we're going to see a lot more of. Meanwhile, the biggest institutions on the planet aren't hesitating. BlackRock ETF now holds over 567,000 Bitcoin, worth nearly $48 billion. Fidelity, ARK Invest, and other giants are doubling down. MicroStrategy just added another 12,000 Bitcoins, tightening its grips as the biggest corporate holder. But here, where things get really interesting. The US government is now one of the largest Bitcoin holder in the world. Yes, you heard that right. After years of dismissing Bitcoin, the US government now holds 200,000 Bitcoin, worth over $16.5 billion. And this isn't just about seizures anymore. President Trump has signed executive order making Bitcoins part of strategic reserve. Now let that sink in. The same government that once called Bitcoins a tool for criminals now sees it as a national asset. They're not selling it. They're keeping it. Whilst the average person is still trying to decide whether Bitcoin is a scam or if they do believe in it, they're still saying Bitcoin is too expensive and I'll wait until it dips lower. And this isn't just a US shift. Bitcoin is now a full-blown political battleground. Trump's administration is openly pro-Bitcoin. State-level politicians are pushing for Bitcoin's treasuries. Most governors and senators are aligning with Bitcoin-friendly policies. A few years ago, politicians barely acknowledged Bitcoin. Now, they're fighting over who gets to control the narrative. The question isn't whether Bitcoins will play a role in the future. It's who going to adapt first and who going to get left behind. Meanwhile, China is playing a very different game. Officially, they banned Bitcoin. No mining, no trading, no adoption. But look closer and you will see a different story. China is still one of the top 10 Bitcoin mining nations despite its so-called ban. Chinese firms are quietly using Bitcoin to bypass US financial restrictions. They are rolling out digital yuan, designed to compete in a new financial system. So will China ever officially embrace Bitcoin? Probably not. But they're making sure that they aren't left behind. And that's bringing us to the big question. Where does all of this leave Bitcoin? Right now, Bitcoin is sitting at $84,000 and the market is at a crossroad. Some analysts predict it dips to $67,000 or $73,000 before the next rally. Others are calling for $250,000 before the year ends. But let's be real. What if that drop never comes? While some are waiting for the $67,000 drop, the biggest investor, the biggest player in the world, are making sure they get their hands on Bitcoin now. The US has already confirmed its strategic Bitcoin reserve. And if the US is securing Bitcoins as part of the long-term strategy, you can bet other countries are doing the same. But they're not going to announce it until they are fully loaded. BlackRock is stacking. Government are hoarding. Supply is getting eaten up behind the scenes. Meanwhile, some people are waiting for the perfect entry. But here's the reality. Bitcoin doesn't wait. If Bitcoin is heading to $1 million per coin, does it really matter if it drops to $67,000 first? Every cycle, the same thing happens. The publics overthink, doubt, and wait for a better entry. Meanwhile, big players scoop up cheap Bitcoin. The cycle repeats, Bitcoin recovers, and suddenly retail FOMO back in, chasing what they could have had for thousands less. It's a game that play out every single time. The only question is, are you going to be the one playing it or the one getting played? Bitcoin isn't just assets anymore. It's becoming the foundations of a new financial system, from institutions' accumulation to governments' reserves, from inflation's hedge to global positioning. And one thing is clear, Bitcoin isn't the future. It's already here. And the best part, we're still early. What do you think? Is Bitcoin just an inflation's hedge? Or is it something much bigger? Drop your thought in the comment section. Keep in mind, if history has taught us anything, those who stack Bitcoin early always come out ahead. And my friends, whatever you have right now, make sure to hold it tight and stack it right. Take care.